She wasn't supposed to see it. It was the kind of thing that happens between one heartbeat and the next, a jacket shifting, a sleeve riding up, 3 seconds of skin. But 3 seconds was enough. Her name, in ink, on his wrist, in his handwriting. She had never given him her name. She had never spoken to him at all. So the question wasn't why. The question was, how long? Elena Vasquez was 32 years old and had learned to make herself very, very small. Not physically, she was tall, dark-haired, the kind of woman people looked at twice in a crowded room. No, she had learned to make herself small in the ways that mattered. Small wants, small plans, small feelings she could tuck into her chest where no one would find them. It was safer that way. She knew this the way you know things that hurt you taught you quietly, permanently. Her ex had called it emotional distance. Her therapist called it a protective pattern. Her best friend Daria called it a waste. Elena called it survival. She worked as a legal translator 5 languages, freelance, mostly at home. She liked it that way. She liked being invisible, essential, and never in the room when the important things happened. She had moved to this side of the city 8 months ago. New apartment, new coffee shop, new life that looked exactly like the old one because she hadn't been brave enough to want anything different. The coffee shop was called Vesna. It had dark wood, good espresso, and a corner booth by the window that Elena had claimed as her own every Tuesday and Thursday morning. She had a system. Arrive at 8:47, order before the rush, sit in the corner, open her laptop, disappear into her work. She had done this for 8 months. She had never once looked up and noticed him. But he had noticed her. He had been noticing her for a very long time. His name was Nikolai Drav. Elena did not know this yet. She would not know it for another 4 days. But the city knew it. Half of the city was afraid of it. He was 36. He ran things, the kind of things that weren't spoken about directly, referred to in the press only as alleged organized interests, and in police reports as a name circled in red. He wore dark suits, no tie, and a quiet authority that rooms rearranged themselves around. He had money. He had power. He had men outside every door he ever walked through. And every Tuesday and Thursday morning, he sat at the bar of Vesna coffee shop, not in a private booth, not at a reserved table, and drank his espresso standing up, because the bar faced the window, and from the bar you could see the corner booth. It had started, he would later admit much later, in a low voice, in the dark because she dropped her pencil. 8 months ago, her first week in the neighborhood, she had walked in, slightly frantic, laptop bag over one shoulder, earbuds in, already pulling her hair up before she'd even ordered. She dropped a pencil, hadn't noticed, kept walking to the corner booth. He had looked at the pencil on the floor for a long moment. He had picked it up. He had held on to it for 3 weeks before he understood why he couldn't throw it away. He had asked the barista, casually, the way men like him ask things like it doesn't matter, which always means it matters more than anything. The woman in the corner, does she come in often? The barista had said, every Tuesday and Thursday. She always orders the same thing. She tips well. She seems lonely. Nikolai had not responded to that. But he had come back the following Tuesday, and the Thursday after, and every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 months. He learned her in pieces the way you learn a song you only hear through a wall. She bit the end of her pen when she was frustrated. She laughed at things on her screen, and then immediately covered her mouth like she'd done something embarrassing. She always ordered a second coffee, but only ever drank half of it. She wore the same faded green cardigan, so often it must have meant something to her. She checked her phone, and then put it face down with the careful movements of someone who had decided, more than once, not to reach out to someone. He noticed everything. He didn't know what to do with any of it, which was the part that frightened him. Nikolai Drav did not get frightened. He had made peace with that part of himself very early. And yet here he was, at a coffee bar, watching a woman translate documents and eat half a croissant, and he could not explain it, and he could not stop. Her name he had learned by accident, a piece of paper left on the table, an invoice with her name typed neatly at the top. Elena. He had read it 3 times. Something about the name sat in his chest like a warm stone. He had the tattoo done 6 weeks later. Wrist. His handwriting. Small enough that no one would see it unless they were close. He was never that close to anyone. He hadn't planned to tell her. He hadn't planned to ever speak to her at all. Some obsessions, he thought, were meant to be kept. Held close and quiet, like a fire you build only for warmth, not light. He had been wrong about a lot of things. He was about to be wrong about this, too. It was a Thursday. Elena had arrived late 9:03, which for her felt like a small disaster. The corner booth was taken. She stood at the entrance, bag on her shoulder, slightly breathless, recalculating. The only open seat was at the bar. She hadn't sat at the bar before. She almost left. She almost turned around and went home to make inferior coffee and be safe and small in her apartment. She sat at the bar. She didn't notice him at first. She was too busy setting up laptop, notebook, headphones. She ordered her coffee. She put her earbuds in. She opened a document. He was 2 seats to her left. He had a newspaper he wasn't reading. He was very still in the way that large, dangerous things are sometimes still. It was only when the barista asked him something that Elena looked up instinctively, the way you look towards sound, and for the first time in 8 months, her eyes landed on him directly. Dark hair, a jaw like something carved, eyes that were already on her before she'd finished turning. She looked away immediately. Her face went warm. He said nothing. He went back to his unread newspaper. 20 minutes passed. Completely ordinary. She translated a clause in a contract. He checked his phone once. Someone behind them laughed too loudly. Outside, a bus rumbled past. Then his jacket slipped. He caught it smooth, automatic, but not before the sleeve of his shirt pulled back. Not before she saw it. 3 seconds. His wrist. The inside of it, pale against the dark ink. Elena, in careful, deliberate letters. His own handwriting. She knew it immediately, the way you know your own name, the way it lives in you differently than every other word. She didn't breathe. He straightened his jacket, looked at his newspaper. His expression hadn't changed. He didn't know she had seen it. Her heart was doing something she didn't have a word for. Not fear. Not exactly. Something older than fear. Something that lived underneath it, the feeling of a door you thought was locked turning out to open from the inside. She looked at her screen. She looked at her hands. She looked to the side of his face, the clean line of his jaw, the way he sat like he owned every room he'd ever been in. Her name, on his wrist, before they had ever spoken. She had 2 options. She could leave. She was good at leaving. She had made an art of it. Or she could ask him. She closed her laptop. Slowly. The sound of it felt enormous in her chest. She pulled out one earbud, and in a voice that was quieter than she intended, she said, "That tattoo on your wrist." He went very still. Not surprised, still something different. The stillness of a man who had been waiting for something for a very long time. He turned to her, and for the first time, she saw his eyes up close, dark, careful, and full of something she didn't have a name for yet. "I know," he said. Just that. 2 words. Like a confession he had already rehearsed. She didn't run. That surprised her. She had built an entire life around the strategy of leaving before anything could catch her, and she didn't run. She sat there in the bar of a coffee shop on a Thursday morning, looking at a man she didn't know who somehow already knew the shape of her name. "How long?" she asked. He looked at the bar top. Something in his jaw shifted, not shame. Reckoning. 8 months, he said. She stared at him. "We've never spoken." "No. You don't know me." He looked at her then, directly, and something moved behind his eyes, something warm and enormous and contained, like a fire that had learned its own edges. "I know you bite your pen when you're frustrated. I know you always order a second coffee and never finish it. I know you have a green cardigan that means something to you and that you laugh at things and then immediately try to take it back. I know you check your phone and put it face down like you're protecting yourself from someone." He paused. "I don't know everything, but I know the parts you think no one sees." Elena had prepared for a lot of things in her life. She had prepared for disappointment, for distance, for the particular loneliness of being in a room full of people who didn't quite reach her. She had not prepared for being seen. It undid something in her. something she had tied very tightly. "Why the tattoo?" she asked. He was quiet for a long moment. She had the feeling he was choosing between a few different true things and deciding which one to say first. "Because I needed it to be permanent," he said finally. "Whatever this is, whatever you are to me, I needed somewhere to keep it that I couldn't lose." She looked at his wrist, at her name, written in his hand, permanent and quiet as a prayer. She thought about the version of herself that had almost not sat at the bar, the version who had almost turned around and gone home to be safe, to be small. She thought about all the things she had stopped wanting because wanting felt like standing at the edge of something and looking down. She was still at the edge. She could still see the drop, but for the first time in a very long time, she didn't want to step back. "I don't know your name," she said. Something shifted in his face, something like relief. "Nikolai." She said it back to herself, quietly, felt the weight of it. She looked at him. "Tell me something else true." And for the first time in 8 months, Nikolai Drav put down everything he was carrying and answered her. That's where their story begins. With a tattoo she was never supposed to see, and a man who had been quietly, completely devoted to someone who had never given him her name. Not obsession in the loud, frightening way, but the quiet kind. The kind that says, "I saw something in you worth holding on to, even when you couldn't see it in yourself." And maybe that's what we all want, isn't it? Not to be chased, but to be noticed. Really noticed. The parts we hide, the patterns we think no one sees. If this story landed somewhere in your chest, let me know in the comments. Tell me what moment got you. Was it the tattoo? The coffee shop? The way he said, "I know"? If you want to hear what Elena says next, what truth Nikolai tells her first, subscribe and hit the bell. Part 2 is coming, and it goes somewhere neither of them expected. Until then, be someone worth tattooing. I'll see you in the next one.